Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you guys. Tonight we have a couple of topics. One was left over from something someone brought up about a month back, or maybe 2 months ago, about karma. And then there's a second question about desire. Both really great questions. It's very theoretical questions today. So let me read the question the person had about karma, and then we'll talk about it. So they ask, how can I understand karma in a positive way instead of thinking of it as a curse? I can make sure my actions are right in this life, but I've also heard about karma from a previous life or generational karma within a family or society. That feels beyond my control, yet it seems like I'm supposed to accept whatever happens. For example, if I were accidentally hit by a car, some people might say it's because of my karma from my previous life. It's very strong. So that makes it feel as though no matter how hard I try to live rightly in this life, there could be karma greater than me that will eventually make me suffer. That feels frightening. Buddhism teaches impermanence. Is karma also impermanent? If it carries over from one life to another, wouldn't that make it permanent? Okay, so there's a couple of questions embedded in here. How can we look at karma in a positive way as opposed to being afraid of it? And how does this all work? Past life, present life, future life, family, intergenerational um, karma. I think that's more of a modern term. And then karma and impermanence. Is this an interesting question? Karma is really a huge topic within Buddhism, and I don't find it easy to talk about at all because there are so many aspects of it. Karma, this one word, is includes a broad range of phenomena. It's a karma in general, literally. The word karma means action. And in the Buddhist context, it means intentional action. But it's not just action. Buddhism talks about karma as action and its consequences. Or consequence has a maybe a negative connotation. So we could say action and its effect, whether positive or negative, or however you want to look at it. And this is not only Buddhism that talks about karma. If you look into ancient Indian religion or Indian philosophy, this word existed long before the Buddha started talking about it. However, he talked about karma, action and effect, or cause and effect in a way that was slightly different than the others. And one of the main differences was that, yes, karma is impermanent, just like everything else. Every single phenomenon is impermanent. Nothing is free from that principle. So, karma, the action itself, well, that's impermanent, right? When we do something, once we've done it, that's it. It's past. However, there's an effect of that action. After we do something, the effect is there, or the effect evolves. So, for example, if I were to get into an argument, get angry, and I shout at someone, is it impermanent? Of course, it's impermanent. I've shouted, the shouting is over. We've finished the fight. It was an argument, let's say. So the argument is over. But what's the effect of the argument? Well, we've all had arguments, and we know that one effect of the argument is that we feel we feel a lot of unpleasant feelings, even though the action of shouting and arguing is over, right? We have an argument and we're huffing and puffing for, who knows how long. After we finished huffing and puffing and we've calmed down a bit, maybe we still have a lot of thinking, a lot of um, regrets, possibly, right? We regret that we spoke in that way, or we may be involved in strategizing or developing a plan for the next argument. So we keep fueling it. We're thinking, what am I going to do next time? What am I going to say to convince this person they're totally wrong? Because they are wrong. I'm totally right. So the argument is over, but it's left this effect, the physiological effects, our body and how we feel, as well as the patterns of thinking. If we continue to dwell on it, we're actually we're fueling this after effect. Let's say we finish the argument, we're no longer dwelling on it, we're no longer thinking about it. Are there still effects? Well, we could say that because we engaged in the argument, because we got angry and we spoke out of anger, we planted a seed. We planted many seeds, or we watered the seeds of anger during that argument. So although we may feel fine now, in the future, the result of this karma, the result of this action is that we could possibly become angry again very easily, right? And that would be an effect. The cause of getting angry and arguing now could lead to an effect later of someone approaching us and us getting angry very quickly and blowing up again. So this is one way to illustrate karma, cause of our action and the effect of our action. And that in the process of receiving the effects, right? One effect of getting angry easily, let's say second time around, the third time around, I get triggered again. I get angry very quickly. In the moment of that effect, I may be adding new causes. I keep getting more angry and I keep finding ways to, speak out of anger. So in the process of receiving the effects of the karma, we're often adding more. We're fueling that cycle, fueling the cycle of action based on ignorance or action based on lacking awareness, right? Ignorance or 愚痴 or 无明 in Chinese is when we lack awareness of our body, mind, the environment, and we act on that. So this cycle of karma goes on endlessly unless we practice, unless we develop awareness, right? When we practice, we can break the cycle. So we may have been quite angry and prone to arguing at one point in our life, but because we practice, we become more aware of our own reactions and we can quell them or calm them. We become aware of our attachments and we can be a little bit more flexible and let go of them. Then, when we get in these situations, we won't be so prone to arguing. That tendency to argue or the tendency to become angered gets less and less. And so that karmic force becomes weaker and weaker. The cycle is gradually being broken down. So this is looking at karma from more of an internal perspective, right? The process of karma within our own body and mind. But karma goes beyond that, or the cause and effect of our action goes just beyond our self, right? Because if we're prone to arguing, and we argue a lot with people, the effects also go externally. People become to know us as the angry guy or the argumentative person. And possibly because of what we said out of anger, we really hurt people. For the time being, maybe we don't see the effects of that. Maybe they're patient with us in the beginning. Maybe they're polite with us, especially because of our role. Um, for myself in a teacher role, especially when I was a monk, being in the monastic role, you're in this position of authority. I was in this position of being not only a teacher, but an administrator. So I'm sure there was a lot of people who were very polite to me, but who maybe hated me. And during that time when I was a monk, I didn't have many people who said what they felt to my face, or, I didn't have many people say, um, complain about me or my behavior directly to my face. There was a few, and I was very grateful for those people to tell me what they saw, my faults, to show me. Hmm. But a lot of people, I think, were more polite. They didn't say it to my face. I would hear it from somebody else. I'd hear it through the grapevine. Can you believe what Changwen Fasher is doing to DDRC? He did this and he did that, and I'd hear it through, second or third hand information. So what I was doing, even though my intention was to better the retreat center and to share the Dharma, I was also ignorant in many ways and did things that were not skillful or said things to people that were hurtful. And that also goes beyond just myself. It affects other people. But sometimes the effects are not immediately visible. Some of the immediate effects of things that we say, for example, if I said something hurtful, the immediate effect could be that that person doesn't feel good, or it triggers something within them. So person A is triggered by what I'm saying, and they hate me. Person B, they're fine. It didn't trigger anything. They didn't have a soft spot or a sore spot to be triggered in this instance. So they're fine, seemingly. Person A immediately gets upset, but maybe they deal with it and they calm down later. Um, Person B, though, initially they didn't feel anything, but later on they thought about it. They're like, wait a second, did he just say that? That was totally wrong. So months later, they hate me. Person A hates me right away, but then they calm down, they feel better, and they like me again. Person B felt fine at first, but then they hate me later. Hate me for 10 years. And it's possible that the person who silently hated me for 10 years didn't do anything about it. They didn't act on their hatred. But 10 years later, their hatred built to a peak, and then they acted on it. You know, they acted on it. They said, this now he's called David. Listen, don't invite him to teach anywhere. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And this, when he was at DDRC, he did this. Can you believe he did that? And they spread some gossip. So now there's Dharma gossip. And there's definitely gossip in the Buddhist world. If you haven't heard already, there's plenty. So wherever there's people, there's gossip. So it may turn out that 10 years after my action, that the fruits ripen or the karma ripens 10 years later. It was hidden for a long time and then it becomes apparent, right? It's kind of like planting a seed. When we plant a seed, it may take a long time for it to grow and blossom into a plant. Karma is just the same. Whether it's internally in our own body and mind, that our actions are like planting seeds and then their fruits ripen, or even within other people or the environment, we plant a seed and it could be a poisonous plant or it could be a fruit-bearing plant. It could be planting seeds of anger and hatred, or it could be planting seeds of kindness. And it may not ripen right away. It may take years. So, on the flip side, something that we may have said that's wholesome or um, out of kindness that we said to someone, 10 years later, it can affect them. They remember what you said 10 years later, and it helps them. Maybe initially they didn't really realize what that meant or didn't impact them, but years later, the impact is felt. So that's a brief illustration of karma, how action based on either ignorance or it could be based on some more clarity is there's always an effect, whether it's immediate, whether it's delayed, whether it's internal or external. And the person asked, okay, so how do we look at it in a positive way? Well, we could look at it in a realistic way, just knowing that whatever we experience now has everything to do with our behavior before, right? Whatever we experience now has everything to do with ourselves, but also with everybody else and everyone else's karma. And this is the idea of what's the word? The Chinese word is gong ye, or communal, shared karma. Because we're not just one person in this world where everyone is acting, and most of us acting on ignorance, but still there's some more wholesome, there's some unwholesomeness, and it's all influencing each other internally, externally. My internal is your external, your internal is my external. So karma, there's no boundary really. Um, but some people look at it as a curse. And for some reason, I don't know if this is only Chinese Buddhism, but people often use this karma as a way to blame people or criticize people. So when something bad happens, they'll say like, ah, your karma is just really heavy. It's like the Buddhist insult or the Buddhist criticism. 你的业障重, or your karmic obstruction is so heavy. But what that really means is that um, the true side of it is that everything has to do with karma. Everything has to do with the behavior of all sentient beings, and we're all affecting each other. So it's only a curse if we look at it as a curse. When something that we feel bad happens and we look at it in a bad light, it feels like a curse. If we get sick, it feels like I'm cursed with this sickness. Or if we have a tragedy that we encounter, it feels like it's a punishment if we look at it that way. But we can look at it with just a more objective, realistic way. Yes, everything that's happening to me has a cause, has a reason, and it has to do with me and it has to do with all sentient beings. So my tragedy is actually also partly your tragedy, or my joy or my fortune is also your fortune. We all share it to some degree or another, right? If someone else is sick in your family or in our society, we all have to take care of them in some way or another, even though the care may not be great or far from ideal. In some way, we're all dealing with each other's tragedies. Just look at the wars that are happening. This is not only some people's misfortune, it's everyone's misfortune. We're all suffering from wars. Some people may be benefiting from wars. People make a lot of money on war, right? The arms industry, people are making big bucks on war. So it almost seems like a fortune for some people. So karma is very complicated, right? Some people's fortune could be other people's misfortune. But if we look at the big picture, even the people making a fortune off of war, at some point there's going to be another consequence. It's interesting how, in order to make the machinery for war, you need a lot of resources, right? You need a lot of petroleum to make weapons because you need to run the factories on all kinds of petroleum and electricity, which is also running on petroleum and other resources. So the very people who are making money, making weapons may run out of resources to make them. So karma is not something that any of us can escape, but it's also not a curse. It's just the reality of cause and effect and the complete interrelatedness of all sentient beings' behavior. And if we act wholesomely, if we act wisely, and we plant more and more seeds, we may not see the results right away, but in time they'll ripen. So that's actually very positive. Buddhist view of impermanence is that even the greatest misfortune can be transformed through good actions, actions done out of kindness or compassion and wisdom that transforms. So they asked, what about previous life and future life? How does that work? Well, as we spoke about a couple of sessions ago, life doesn't end with the death of our physical body. From the Buddhist perspective, life is not just a physical body, it's also consciousness, this momentum of action. All the seeds that we plant with our actions now, they influence the environment and they also influence our consciousness, which it's not permanent. It's different than a soul, right? Which you all know. Consciousness in Buddhism is not a permanent soul. It's just a constantly evolving flow of, of karma. Consciousness, or what's referred to in Mahayana Buddhism as the eighth consciousness or store consciousness, it's a constant flow of karma, the activity of our mind and all the seeds that we plant. They're constantly changing and maturing or decaying, right? Some momentum is building, some momentum is decreasing. It's a constant flow of action. Um, that's what continues from life to life. And it's impermanent, meaning that we can transform, which is again a very positive message. If in this life we didn't have enough time to practice so well, it's okay. We planted seeds so that in the future life, with whatever form we turn out to be, those seeds are still there and that momentum is still there. So our mind is transforming. The mind is impermanent, right? Consciousness is impermanent, so it can transform. The unwholesome seeds of craving, anger, and ignorance can be transformed or composted, if we use the analogy of seeds in a field. Those uh, vexations can be transformed, and our consciousness can become wisdom. That's a basic explanation of karma, cause and effect based on action, and how it affects us internally, externally, from past to present to future, and that it's always transforming. So that even though we've done some things that are pretty heavy and pretty terrible, we can transform. Whatever is left over, whatever momentum is left over inside of us and outside of us, we can change through practice and through new actions, wholesome actions that nourish wisdom and compassion in us, and that also influence other people and nourish other people's wisdom and compassion. So if we look again at the situation in the world, wars happening in the world, if we are a person who is just complaining about it, criticizing people, and the things we say are just really hatred, even hatred towards politicians. Sometimes it seems okay to speak in a way that's just criticizing and hateful to politicians. It seems like that's an okay target for many people. But for Buddhists, even though we never meet these people, if in our minds and in our speech and in our social media, we're just spreading words of hatred, that doesn't help at all. Hatred doesn't stop wars. Hatred doesn't stop hatred or ignorance. So if we can um, transform our minds and not have hatred towards people who are leading our governments and doing things that are causing a lot of harm, instead of spreading hatred, we can spread understanding. Or we could share our message, but we could share it in a way that's not fueling hatred. And in the long run, this is planting seeds for, in the long run, reducing wars or reducing conflict and violence. So this is, how karma is not only individual, but it's shared and it can transform. It can change tragedy into fortune or change ignorance into wisdom. So that's a very positive message. Any thoughts about that? Follow up? Yeah.
My question is about the arahants and the Buddhas, because in the traditional stories, they seem to be these individuals who will no longer be reborn, and no karma left. It would sound to me like they no longer be interconnected with us. Or especially the Buddha, it seemed okay. Shakyamuni is gone, then there's, I don't know, tens of thousands of years. There will be no Buddha in this universe until the future Buddha. It sounds a bit sad to me. Like, where did the Buddha go? Like, the Buddha just purified himself and just gone, and we're left in the darkness. That is my question.
Mm. hmm And there are a couple of ways to look at this because um, earlier Buddhism or more fundamental Buddhism teachings that you see in the Nikaya and in Agama is that once the Buddha and the Arhats passed away, which is actually the term that's more accurate, like they called it passing away, 寂灭, which is like uh, silence and extinction. It's like the body and all of this karma of the mind passed out, passed away, kind of like a candle is blown out. Um, it may seem kind of sad, like there's nothing left, right? Buddha's gone, there's nothing left. Or when the arahats die, the phrase that's used is what's done has been done. There's no more learning, there's no more left to do, there's no more need to practice, and there's no more future rebirths. 所作已办，不受后有, something like that. So if it's like a candle that's passing away and gone, It's very sad. And it seems like, so what are you left with if you become a Buddha or an Arhat? It's like there's nothing left. Is it nothing? And many scholars and people believe that Buddha was teaching annihil annihilationism, that with nirvana, there's nothing left. But the Buddha didn't say that. He didn't say there's nothing left with Buddhahood or liberation. He just said there's no more karma, there's no more future rebirth based on karma. In Mahayana Buddhism, um, there is future birth. A liberated person can become born again or have a new form, but it's not based on karma. It's not based on anger, craving, or ignorance. It's based on compassion. The Mahayana is um, obviously more positive in that sense, that the Buddha no longer has a form that's based on craving, it's based on compassion. And there could be countless forms and shapes that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas use to help sentient beings. But this takes a kind of religious faith to believe and understand what is all that? What is the Buddha that's transforming that? Who is the Bodhisattva that's transforming? Guanyin Bodhisattva sometimes appears as a woman, sometimes appears as a man. Is it a woman? Is it a man? It's actually described as neither male nor female. What is that? And who is that? Is there a soul inside there? Well, okay, we know that Buddhism says there's no soul. Is there consciousness inside the Bodhisattva that comes from somewhere? This is a really complicated topic and, you know, far beyond my personal experience. But in principle, um, if you look up in the Mahayana teaching, the three bodies of a Buddha can help understand what comes after death for enlightened beings. We don't have time to really go into it now, but have you heard this before? The three bodies of the Buddha? The Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya. The Dharma body, the reward body, the transformation body. Fa Shen, Bao Shen, Hua Shen. Have you heard that? These terms in Mahayana and foundational Buddhism are a little different. In Mahayana, the Dharma body is just that everywhere throughout all time and space, there is Buddha, or there is this capacity for wakefulness that has no form, that has no shape. You can't say it's something, but you can't say it's nothing. That's a basic explanation of the Dharma body. The reward body is a little bit more, slightly more concrete. It's a body that the Buddhas manifest in Pure Lands, and only beings in those lands can see them. Like Amitabha Buddha's body. What does that look like? Well, the body in the Pure Land is this reward body. It's not something that comes from karma. It's something that comes from compassionate vow. Okay, that's slightly more concrete, but still way beyond our experience. And the third, the transformation body, is the physical form that we can see and hear and touch. That's the body of Shakyamuni Buddha or the body of Guanyin, whatever form it has that you can see. We can see with our eyes, we can hear its voice with our ears. The transformation body is impermanent. The reward body is also not a permanent form, but it's often the Dharma body is often seen as permanent. Yet that's where things get tricky. That seems very similar to um, some sort of great self of other religions. But the permanence of the Dharma body just means that there's a constant, or there always is awareness. There always is this universal wakefulness in all things, in all forms, but it has itself no form or no shape. I don't know if this is easy to grasp. It's hard to wrap your mind around it, but with some form of analogy, it can help. Where the ocean, it's like the water itself, the water of the ocean, and maybe not the best analogy, but it's close. Um, the water of the ocean is everywhere. We could say that's the body of the ocean is the Dharmakaya. It's everywhere. The reward body, which is not quite visible, but it has this power or potential, that's like the energy that makes waves. There's energy and movement in the water. We can't always see it. Only some people can see it, or maybe you can see it with certain instruments. It can only really be seen based on certain forms, subtle forms of waves or subtle movements in the water. But then the waves themselves are readily visible. It's like the transformation body, the waves themselves. I don't know, does that work as an analogy? This is all very metaphysical stuff here. But when the Buddha passed away, for example, it was a physical body that was extinguished, so to speak. In the physical body, the Buddha's body is actually still here, the physical body, right? Even from an ecological perspective, the elements of the Buddha's body could be in the very water that I'm drinking. They never left the earth. The Buddha's body is still on the earth, but it just changed forms. What's left over? We say that that capacity for wakefulness never goes anywhere. It doesn't come and it doesn't go. You can't see it, you can't feel it, but the Buddha said that's nirvana. It's unborn. It's never born and it doesn't die. Just like the ocean is always there. It's not born or dying, but the waves come and they go, and the waves transform, right? So it's different than nothingness. From the earlier Buddhism, their perspective was less metaphysical, I think more practical, in that the Dharma body of the Buddha from the earlier teachings is actually the Dharma, his teachings. So the Buddha passed away. He's no longer speaking it, but Buddhism still exists, right? Buddhism hasn't died yet. And as long as people keep sharing it, as long as people keep practicing this Dharma body of the Buddha, this body of teachings and of wisdom is uh, is being shared endlessly. So that's not sad. You know, it would be sad if the Buddha still had to keep talking. He's like 300 years old or 2,500 years old. What would he look like or she if they had to teach, keep talking for thousands of years? I think it's about time to change a body every now and again or have a new form to continue to share wisdom and compassion. All of us here are different bodies of the Buddha, we could say. We haven't realized our potential, but we're all different forms that have the capacity for wisdom. So all of us, from another angle, are the transformation body of the Buddha. Just like the saying, the moon in the sky can be reflected in countless pools of water, right? It's another analogy to express that this capacity for wisdom and compassion doesn't disappear or come and go. It's just the physical bodies and the way that it's expressed changes. Some forms are driven by this karma, anger, craving, and ignorance, and they transform based on that. With enlightenment and insight, forms still change, but they're influenced by wisdom and compassion. In Chan, we talk about the mind, the Master Huineng's teaching of the three bodies of the Buddha. It's a little different. He just talks about it in a even more down to earth way that we can experience. He said, our basic nature, being pure, is the Dharma body. That our mind basically is pure. That's the Dharma body. No matter what, we have this pure capacity to be aware. Even though it's clouded up with all kinds of attachments, we all have it. That's the Dharma body. The reward body is when from moment to moment we have wisdom. Moment to moment we're wise. That's the reward body. Because we benefit and everybody benefits from moment to moment being wise and compassionate, skillful. He said the transformation body is thinking, our thoughts. We think pleasant things, that's like heaven. If we think unpleasant things, that's like hell. We think wholesome things, it's beneficial. If we think unwholesome and then do unwholesome things, that's harmful. So from the Chan perspective, we try to return to our own experience. Our mind, our thoughts are always transforming, but our mind can never be permanently soiled by any of them. That's what it means that our mind is pure. No matter what we're thinking, no matter what we were just thinking, let's say, before we were aware of what we're thinking, maybe we were lost in thought, we were thinking about how to hurt someone. As soon as we're aware, those thoughts are transformed. We're completely aware and we have wisdom, then that's the reward body. The capacity to be aware of ourselves, that's the Dharma body. So, from the Chan perspective, all these three bodies are within us and we can experience it. From a metaphysical perspective, you can describe it differently, like the traditional Mahayana teaching. So, somehow, in the previous 40 minutes, we covered the entire universe, the karma of sentient beings to the compassion of all the Buddhas, cause and effect based on ignorance, that's birth and death. Cause and effect based on wisdom, that's the transformation of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Taking on birth and death, but being free amidst birth and death. How can we bring this stuff home? How can we actually use it? Based on what I just said, can someone think of, okay, well, now that we know all this, how can it actually help us in our life? Now is your turn to speak the Dharma.
There.
Okay.
Um, the way to deal with it is to observe and learn our karma and stop reacting unconsciously and creating future problems for ourselves and others. And, that's the purpose of meditation is to look and see the workings of karma in the flow of our thoughts. And I believe a clear understanding would automatically lead to a purification of our behavior. And, the end point, I guess, is Buddhahood.
Yeah, thank you. Well said. Other reflections? What do you think?
I think I was inspired to I use today's discussion to remind myself. I constantly tend to think myself as a separate individual, not connected with others. Like I would think, oh, why did this bad thing happen to me? Okay, I know it's interconnected karma, but I'm the one suffering. But if I relax, take a breath, and think about trying to understand further, like whatever happened, especially, for example, like to my family. Certainly, it's not just my family experienced. It's a whole history impacting like China or that 2 decades of time. So that helped me to come out of this separate me. And yeah, to remind me to see how I'm recognizing these certain feelings or thoughts as, oh, this defines me or this is me. Another thing is, I think it was very positive to think the Buddha's body is reflected in all of us. And I have a responsibility to take wholesome actions, or at least trying to practice, because I can impact all the sentient beings. That's, yeah, inspiring to me.
Great. Thich Nhat Hanh uses a great word to describe this. And he says, we're all the continuation of the Buddha. His students are a continuation of him. All of us who practice Buddhism are a continuation of the Buddha. And so when they celebrate birthdays, you would say it is celebrating your continuation day. And when he died, he told people to celebrate it as a continuation, not to be sad about it, but that his form changed. The Dharma that he shared changed and evolved, and now is evolving with his students and his community. Just like my teacher, or our teacher, Master Sheng Yen, he passed away 2009. It's already, how many years is that? 17 years? But his teachings are also evolving with all of us. So we could share in suffering if we stop practicing and we give in to our tendencies, but we could share in the reward of our wisdom if we practice and act with kindness. We all share that reward body, the reward of this development of wisdom and compassion. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight, sharing your questions, sharing your wisdom. The question we didn't get to tonight about desire and path of practice, we'll save that for next time. Okay. All right, folks, have a good night. See you all then.